there's a great restoration verse in Acts 3:21. It says there that heaven must retain the Messiah, Jesus, now, until the time comes for the apokatastasis, that's the Greek word for restoration, putting everything back right where it was meant to be. I think that's a brilliant idea. That gives me daily joy to think that one day Jesus, aided by the saints who are in training to do this now, we're going to make everything right. I would love to stop abortion. How dare people kill their babies near or close to the time of birth or even later? This is unspeakably bad. How dare people have sexual relationships outside of marriage where there's no nest to put the baby? That's all wrong. How dare people get tanks and build weapons of unspeakable power to kill each other? We're going to stop that. If you can't be excited about that, I don't know what you would get excited about. So in addition, as a little bonus, let me put it that way, you get to live forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And forever, there are commercials there saying, how would you like to live another 5 years? How would you like to lose weight? How would you like to do this? Well, buy my product. If God had a commercial, it would be, how would you like to live forever? So I work out of a very simple idea, and I'm just shocked daily that Jesus' words about the gospel of the kingdom are the whole story. And I see now why, because Adam failed to rule the world for God. Adam was God's landlord, put in charge of this amazing creation. And look at the mess he made by believing lies from the devil. And there is an external devil, of course. He believed those lies instead of the truth. See if we can't reverse that and do the opposite and be God's good landlord, look after this amazing planet for God and for Jesus, and finally wind up then telling the nations to beat their swords into plowshares. Isaiah 2. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. I'm not lying to you. Why would I bother? That's exactly what I work out of. And what you said applies very well to our former Jehovah's Witness friends. We have numbers of them now. They want to get things right. The people that I find least able to deal with are those who really say, well, who cares? Turn on the television. Let's get on with real life. No, real life is, are you going to live forever? That is real life. Jesus is the only one who counts for me. What if Jesus is alive after being dead? Does that get your attention? Right. It ought to. If it doesn't, there's something terribly failing and missing in your whole approach to life. And my first inclination is to say, well, what is the gospel? And I'm amazed at how people don't use the easy verses. And you can check this. Go to any Christian bookstore, get a book on the Bible, and look up in the index. If it's a good book, it'll have an index of the text, and see if they mention Luke 4:43. What? Luke 4:43. How many of the public knows what that is? That's a brilliant verse where Jesus said, I'm duty bound, I'm divinely driven to preach the gospel about God's restoration program in the kingdom of God. That's why God sent me. You'd think you'd have 4 or 5 sermons a month on that, wouldn't you? And my theme is, you better sound like Jesus. And I didn't in my Church of England days. I didn't know what Jesus said. Now I do know. He's very excited about restoring this earth to a state which it desperately needs. I mean, all of us can see how bad the world is now. I would love to tell people, no, it's not true to say X, Y, and Z, but it is true to say this. Paul has this wonderful verse, which I use a lot in 2 Thessalonians 2:10, where he says, because the people refused to have a love for the truth in order to be saved, God said to them, okay, I'll show you what it's like to be deluded. And so God gave them over, because they didn't have a love for truth, to a spirit of delusion, so they would wind up believing lies. What an awful thing that is. So we work against that. The truth makes me feel better. I think I'll live longer with the truth. It's not an academic thing. I'm not just trying to win an argument for the sake of winning an argument, but I do believe that Jesus spoke the truth. And one of his favorite sayings, John 6:63, which says, the words that I speak to you, Jesus said, are spirit and life. That's to say, they're vectors or carriers of life and energy and truth. I'd rather speak the truth than tell lies. That seems to me unreasonable. But I don't think the churches have got this right. It was not remotely to do with what I'm talking about now. In that Church of England day, if I knew anything, was that if I was a good chap, what I would call jolly good chap theology, if I behaved well, according to my own standards, then when I died, I would go to heaven and play a harp solo on a pink cloud. I now regard that as ludicrously bad. I want to tell this audience, anybody who happens to listen to these, That's not remotely to do with Jesus. Nobody in the Bible goes to heaven when they die. They fall asleep in the grave, Daniel 12, verse 2, until they wake up in the resurrection. What a marvelous prospect.